It's time for another episode of the Film Room, and today we're going to take a look at Tennessee defensive end pass rusher James Pearce Jr. Here's an accomplished pass rusher, lots of production, 17 and a half sacks over the last 2 seasons. And so what we're going to do, if you're not familiar, is we're going to take a look at the tape. I'm going to show you highlights of a couple games to showcase the type of player that Pearce is, what he can do on the field, how he translates to the NFL, and then we'll get into some projection of how where he could end up going in the 2025 NFL draft, what teams could possibly fit him. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the tape. Now, the first thing that you'll notice with James Pearce Jr. is just he's a pure speed pass rusher. We see from this clip against Alabama. You know, he's great at timing the snap and using that burst and speed to get off the edge, put those tackles in a bind right away, knowing that, hey, I have to get quick depth, and if I don't, Pearce is going to get around that edge and get to the quarterback. And we see another example of that this time on the right side, playing that 9 technique. Just has that speed. They try to get the ball out quick. They're going to leave him unblocked in this situation, and he just has that speed and that burst to be able to come in. Don't know if he affected this throw, but he definitely was able to light up Jalen Milroe and let him know that he was coming all game long. And we see that here against Oklahoma, once again on the right side. You know, in this case, that tackle is in kind of a good position, but Pearce, using his length, is able to get to him, push off to the outside, and then get around to help bring down the quarterback. And it's just that speed and just using his body. Like I said here, getting into that left tackle initially, getting that separation to be able to push off, and then that burst and that closing speed to be able to finish. So not only does Pearce have the speed off the edge, he does also show some bend. Here against Alabama, he's able to get to the edge with that speed, but then the right tackle was trying to push him past, and he's able to sink those hips and get around him. Now, he doesn't finish with the sack there. Milroe was able to get off, and I think, you look at it, and the right tackle was kind of still pushing and pulling at him there. But just that speed to go with that bend, the ability to sink those hips, bend around that right tackle, get his hands on the quarterback. You'd love to see him finish there with that safety. Doesn't happen, but he's still able, forcing the quarterback to flee and have to make a much tougher throw. And then what I love about him is he does have that change of direction. Here against Alabama, right side, left defensive end. He's once again going to kind of be left unblocked. They're going to look to try and pick him up with this tight end over here. And he's able to see that this is a keeper. The quarterback, Milroe, is keeping this ball, and he's able to redirect back outside to get into the quarterback's face. Now, it was still completion, but just looking at his traits, looking at this burst, looking at that change of direction, you just love that. And you see that show up on his pass rushing ability, just to be able to change directions, redirect, and still get into the quarterback's face. All right, so now let's transition over to him as a run defender. We saw that speed, we saw that athleticism. How does that fit in the run game? So here against Oklahoma, he's the left defensive end over here, and he's going to come off, and we're going to see that speed here. Coming off this edge, once again, they're trying to maybe pick him up with this tight end, and he's just going to come flying in, lower that shoulder, and then fight off to make that tackle. So not only does he have the speed and explosiveness, but he has the willingness to put his head down, lower his shoulder, and keep fighting to try and make this tackle. And you just love that here. He sees that tight end coming, and he's like, I'll just lower my shoulder, bounce off of him, make that tackle. Now, I also want to see, how does he set the edge? Here against Oklahoma, We see a little play action here, and he's able to engage with that right tackle and use that leverage. He's in a position right here that he's got both the inside and the outside gap coverage. He's got the length, he's got the leverage. We've seen him be able to get off these. Now, this ends up being a play-action pass, so it's not a run, but it still shows that he's got that ability. Hey, we see run action. I'm going to set this edge. I'm going to take on this guy. I've got two gaps here despite being only 245 pounds. I've got, playing a two gap right here. And then we saw quickly, as soon as he reads that it's a pass and not a run, boom, he's able to come off and nearly tip that ball. And it's just that strength and being able to use leverage that we see here. And then one last look at him as a run defender. We see him over here on the left side as the right defensive end. And at the snap of the ball, he's going to slant inside, and he's going to take on Alabama left guard Tyler Booker. Booker's considered one of the best interior linemen in this draft class. And Pearce is able to go attack at him. Once again, use his length to attack at the body. And then what I love here is he's able to push him back, stuff that run, stuff that hole, and help bring back that running back for legit no gain here. And here's a guy that's 245 pounds going against a, 315, 320-pound guard. And he's able to use his leverage, stand him, bend him back, stuff that hole, and then come off to help make a gang tackle for a tackle for loss. And it's just this ability we saw. He could use his speed and quickness. Here we're seeing he can use his strength and leverage to help stop the run. Now, another unique thing about James Pearce Jr. is they dropped him into coverage, and he flows well. As we see here against Oklahoma, he's at the bottom of the screen, kind of looking like he's playing an outside linebacker in a 3-4. And at the snap, he's going to just kind of sit there, but then he sees this running back kind of coming out, and I just love his ability to flow. If we're just kind of watching him, just his ability in coverage to redirect, swivel those hips, nothing too extreme, but you just see the looseness in those hips, the ability to kind of just flow back, kind of go, weaving in and out, and just so natural doing so. We see another example of that here against Oklahoma. Once again, he's kind of lined up as an outside linebacker right here. And he's just going to drop into coverage, kind of come up just like he did before, but just sees those guys coming and flow back. And because of this, you look at the quarterback, he's looking right here. He wants to look to see that guy. He's looking right here as well. And Pearce is just his ability to take that drop back, essentially takes this guy away and forces that quarterback, along with the pass rush, to be able to have to take off up the middle. And it's just the ease in his drop. I mean, he's able to cover some ground, bounce, outside subtly, and just flow. And you don't see a lot of pass rushers. They're not used to dropping. They look a little stiff out there. But Pearce just looks natural, dropping back into zone coverage and taking away passing lanes. And speaking of dropping in the passing lanes, we see here left defensive end. Looks like he's going to rush, but instead, little zone blitz, able to drop back, take away that initial crossing route. And it's just, once again, the awareness, too, that he's dropping, and he's got his head on a swivel looking and saying, oh, here's a guy crossing. I could take him away and then just flow and essentially be almost like a spy on the quarterback because Milrose's such a good runner. It's just, he just seems so natural. And I've said that the last three clips ad nauseum, but he's got the fluidity. He's got the awareness. You don't see a lot of that in college defensive ends when they drop. There is a lot to like about James Pearce Jr. as it relates to him in the 2025 NFL Draft. Like I said, he's got great size. 6'5" and a fourth, 245 pounds. He's got essentially an 81-inch wingspan. He's got speed off the edge. He's got the ability to play with leverage in the run game. He can drop into coverage. So he's got a versatile skill set that you think would be appealing to NFL teams. He's got sack production, 17.5 sacks the last 2 years, 10 in 2023, 7.5 in 2024. So he's got that sack production as well. He reminds me a lot of Leonard Floyd, who came out of Georgia. And I went and I compared the two on their RAS, relative athletic scores. And they're very similar, not identical, but very similar. I would say Floyd, to me, was a little bit more quick-twitched. And Pearce is, too, don't get me wrong. But Floyd was a top 10 pick, top 11 pick. I can't remember. The Bears, I think they traded up to 9 to get him initially. And he's bounced around a few teams. But he's been an accomplished pass rusher in the NFL. And I think Pearce Jr. definitely could fit that. A guy that, maybe you put him in a 3-4, and he's a guy that you trust dropping in on zone blitzes. You're not going to drop him into coverage on a regular basis. You're probably not going to match him up man-to-man. But you can, part of your zone blitz scheme, you got a guy right there that can drop and take away the hooks, take away the flats, just get in a passing lane quickly. I think that's a very appealing to especially aggressive defensive coordinators. Now Pearce was someone who, coming into this 2024 football season, he was a fixture in the top 10 of mock drafts. I don't think that's going to be the case for him. I think he's a bottom of the first half, early second-round pick. There seems to be some off-the-field issues, concerns, red flags, whatever you want to call them. I don't know. Personally, I don't dive into that, but there is some speculation about that might cause him to drop. But like I said, talented pass rushers tend to go early, and I think a team like Tampa could be one of those teams that takes him early. I think he fits Todd Bowles' scheme pretty well. Joe Tryon was a guy that they drafted. Now he's signed somewhere else as a free agent, so they could use that kind of edge rusher guy, and he likes his own blitz. But like I said, I think he's going to go somewhere in the late first, early second. And I think a team that needs a speed rusher off the edge or runs a base 3-4 is going to be very intrigued with James Pearce Jr. All right, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this episode of the Film Room. If you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell to get notifications whenever I send out a new video. Follow me on social media. Wherever you do social media, draft_Brian is where you can find me. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Till next time.